An Israeli attack on a humanitarian zone in the Gaza Strip has killed and injured hundreds of people. Israel says it was targeting 2 Hamas commanders, including Mohammed Deif, one of the planners of the October 7 terrorist attacks. It's not clear whether he was among the victims, but Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has restated his pledge to track down every Hamas leader. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says at least 90 people were killed in the strike, which took place on a camp for displaced Palestinians in the southern city of Khan Yunis.
The moment Israeli missiles hit. The aftermath. The smouldering embers of the al-Mawasi displacement camp, a designated safe zone.
I was displaced 12 times. This was meant to be the safest area in Khan Yunis, the busiest area. My neighbours are elderly people, women and children. They are all civilians.
I was sitting in my tent when the tents around me and this building were hit. We started running. I got out of the tent and ran into the street. The bombing was relentless. The whole street was full of bodies. We started running. Are these the humanitarian areas that Netanyahu talks about? There are no humanitarian areas or safe areas.
The Israeli army say they were targeting 2 Hamas commanders who they claim were hiding among civilians. One of the targets was Mohammed Deif. Israel believes he was one of the masterminds of the October 7th terror attacks. A Hamas official denied the claims by the Israeli military, accusing it of intentionally targeting civilians. The attack on al-Mawasi is the latest in a series of Israeli strikes on areas in Gaza where displaced Palestinians are sheltering.
We can speak now to journalist Balig Sladeen, who joins us from Tel Aviv. Balig, Benjamin Netanyahu has just been speaking. What's he had to say about the strike?
Yes, so Netanyahu confirmed that the strike happened, and the target of the strike was Mohammed Deif and his deputy as well, one of the senior commanders in Khan Yunis, the central part of the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu didn't say that or didn't confirm whether he was killed or not, but he said that Israel will actually go after every single Hamas leader, and specifically speaking about Mohammed Deif, who has been a symbol in the Palestinian minds in general, but specifically in Hamas, and with all of his knowledge and all of his capabilities, then we can say that if that attack it did successfully kill him, then this would be the most significant assassination since the beginning of this war.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Mohammed Deif. Israel has been after him for quite a while now. Tell us who he is and why is he so important?
Yeah, so it has been said that he actually survived a number of assassination attempts before, 5 or 6 times. Some people would even say 7 times. So this is the 8th time that Israel tried to assassinate him. He had a long, of course, history with the Israeli military and has been the de facto, at least, chief, the military chief of the Izzeddin Qassam brigades, the Hamas military wing, and that's why Israel is after him. It's not only about the October 7th attack. He obviously was one of the masterminds, but also for future purposes. When we talk about Hamas's possible strategic rehabilitation, Mohammed Deif would have played a key element there. So now, again, if he was actually killed, then this is a huge slap for Hamas, if we can call it this way.
Balig, just quickly, if you don't mind, ceasefire talks are still taking place in Qatar and Egypt. What's Netanyahu had to say about that?
Well, first of all, we had to update that Deri Barnea, the head of the Mossad, will travel to Doha this week again. So the ceasefire talks are continuing. There has been some worrying that this attack could actually lead to some sabotaging of the talks, but the estimation in Israel that there could be a tactical, just announcing that for a few days there will be no negotiations, but that will not eventually affect the negotiations. So we are continuing and watching that.
Okay, journalist Balig Sladeen, thank you so much for your reporting.
Thank you.
Professor of Law Michael Lynk of Western University in Ontario is a former UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian territories. He told me about the legal implications of the strike.
International law is very clear that during a combat zone, that the attacking armies have to distinguish very clearly between combatants and civilians as your target. And this has been a running theme throughout the 9 months of this particular war, where Israel claims that it's shooting at targets that are only aimed at Hamas militants or militants from other Palestinian armed groups, but where the consequence has been thousands and thousands of civilian deaths and injuries with respect to this. And most leading human rights organizations that have examined both the Israeli claims and the facts that have been able to gather on the ground have concluded that Israel has been indiscriminate in its use of military force, resulting in these thousands of civilian deaths. Even Joe Biden has said on several occasions that Israel's attacks have been indiscriminate.
Looking at the other side, what about Hamas's obligations? Is there evidence of Palestinian civilians being used by the militants as human shields?
Yes, look, that's a claim that Israel often makes. Hamas does fight in a densely populated urban area, and it is obliged to try to stay away from civilians or putting them in harm. But the fact that they are fighting in a densely populated civilian area does not excuse or relieve the other army, in this case the Israeli army, from taking every precaution to distinguish between civilian and combatant. And we've seen, I guess, what's happened today. This is, I think, the 5th straight day of missile attacks that have resulted in substantial Palestinian civilian deaths, where Israel has said it's attacking militants, but the consequence has been this enormous death toll among civilians.
Michael, you mentioned the word consequences or consequence, which sets off a light bulb for me. What will the consequences of this war be for both sides?
Well, one can only hope that there's going to be a reckoning one day for the leadership of both sides in The Hague. We know that the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in May made application to the court itself for arrest warrants for 3 senior Hamas leaders and for the Israeli Prime Minister and the Israeli Defense Minister. Those arrest warrants have yet to be decided upon or issued by the court, but it's a slow but necessary first start in trying to bring some issue of accountability to not only this 9-month-old war, but to the 57-year-old occupation. The issue is, and this has been repeated in a number of United Nations reports, that there is a almost total impunity and a lack of accountability with respect to both Israel and Hamas in the various conflicts that have gone on for the last 15 years, in particular in Gaza. And the UN has repeatedly said this has to end.
And in the meantime, the fighting continues, the deaths continue. Michael Lynk from Western University in Canada, thank you very much for taking us through that.
Thank you very much for having me.
And our Jerusalem correspondent Tania Krämer joins us now. Tania, good to see you. What more is the Israeli military saying about this strike?
Well, the Israeli military basically says that it targeted what they described as an area compound with militants in it, and where they had intelligence at that time that Mohammed Deif and another senior commander were there on the ground. And another key factor to carry out that strike for them was that there appeared to be no hostages around them. Now, they have not denied that this area was in a so-called designated safer zone, an extended safer zone near in the western part of Khan Yunis, where tens of thousands of Palestinians are actually sheltering. They also have released some satellite imagery showing the target, but you can also see on that on these photos that there are tents and structures nearby. And what we are hearing there from eyewitnesses, and also, of course, those footage that's coming there from on social media is what people are saying. There were several blasts, and it's believed that those blasts also affect, of course, the surrounding areas. And what we've been seeing during the course of the day is people trying to rescue people with their bare hands, also carrying them with cloths or carpets to the nearby hospital, the Al-Nasser hospital. Rescue services, they have said that they are overwhelmed now after 9 months of war, that they have difficulties to take in so many casualties. Now, Hamas has said that 71 people were killed. We don't know the breakdown, whether there were any militants among them, but over 300 people injured, with probably still injuries rising. So it's certainly not that there is a safe zone for people, what many people have said for many months now.
Now, Tania, at the beginning of your answer, you mentioned Mohammed Deif. Israel has been after him for quite a long time now. Tell us, who is he and why is he so important to them?
Well, Mohammed Deif is a very somehow elusive figure, and Israel has tried for many, many years to assassinate him, actually. He is the number 2 of Gaza militants, the head of the military wing, the Qassam brigades, but also number 2 after Yahya Sinwar, that Israel is also trying to get. And he is, as you heard in the report, considered one of the architects of October 7, but also Israel sees him for many years behind many of the attacks that were carried out by Hamas for many years. And it's so elusive that there's even no real photo, or a photo that's undated. So many people don't even know what he actually looks like right now. Hamas officials have denied that any of their leaders was killed or targeted, and they have said this is just an excuse for yet another massacre, as they put it. So the army has said they're still verifying, so it might take some time until we know whether they confirm that they targeted him, but whether we know whether he was killed.
Our Jerusalem correspondent Tania Krämer there. Tania, thank you.